The first thing, that if a definition is messy or incomplete, okay, so this is especially an issue when there are vague words in the topic that you don't define properly. So in the debate about abortion that we were talking about earlier, that example, if I don't define what worse than is, if I just say it's bad, and the other team cannot clarify that, then people become confused, right? Or if it's incomplete, I define one word, but I don't define the other word. Then the debate also becomes incomplete. The debate becomes messy. So a debate like this will end up becoming a debate about those words. What do those words mean? Right? So the opposition team and the government team may disagree about the meanings of those words. Worse still, the judge may disagree about the meaning of that word. Right? And you have 3 or 4 or 5 different understandings of what that word is, then you're not going to have a debate. You're going to have a very confusing conversation. Right? So in the situation where words are not explained clearly, that debate could end up becoming very, very messy, and teams have to be very careful then to explain some of those words clearly. The second thing that can happen with definitions is a definition that is too wide or a definition that is too narrow. What do I mean by wide and narrow? A wide definition is a definition with very generous parameters. So everything is included in this debate. Everyone, every country, every time, every issue. That makes every argument in the debate relevant. So this argument and that argument and this one and that one and this one and this one and this one are all equally important in the debate, right? Now, that makes the debate messy. It also makes the debate really, really difficult to evaluate. So teams could be talking about different things that fall within the context of the debate, but don't necessarily clash with each other. Okay? So, for example, the debate about if the motion is we believe that the environment is more important than the economy, this debate can be very different depending if the debate happens in the first world, where the economy is more developed and the environment is more also being used and abused, or in the third world, where the economy is underdeveloped and there are more environmental resources. So if one team talks about the first world and the other team talks about the third world, those teams don't clash. How do you then evaluate debate? I'm not saying you must choose one. You can have a debate about both, but teams need to make a conscious choice in the definition process and decide what are the parameters, what are the context, what is the context of this debate, so the debate doesn't go out of control. All right? The opposite of this problem are debates that instead of being too wide, are too narrow. They're very, very tiny. You only want to talk about one country or one person and one situation in one time. Right? And that doesn't create space for debate. It becomes very difficult to make arguments in that situation. Right? It's very difficult for the other team. It's also very difficult for your own team to make arguments because the debate is so tiny. And when the definition is so narrow, the debate doesn't become important anymore. All you want to talk about is one very unique situation, which is probably very rare, which probably won't happen again, right? Which is not as relevant as talking about something that is general. Okay? So if as a team, you need to think about a balance of talking about things within a context that doesn't become too messy, but not too narrow, right? The third problem with definitions, or how definitions can impact the debate, is if a definition is too soft or too hard. By too soft, I mean the standard or the burden of proof is very low. All you want to prove is a very small thing, right? Very, very small thing. Something that's almost true. That's going to be your burden of proof. So, for example, in the debate about legalizing drugs, this house would legalize, or we should legalize drugs. I say, I want to legalize, give people the right to take 3 Tylenols every 4 hours instead of 2. Because right now on the pack it says only 2 every 4 hours. And I think that is an oppression of people's individual liberty to take more Tylenol. Right? So let's support this right to take 3 Tylenols, not 2, but 3. there really isn't a debate there, right? Because it isn't a big issue, number one. There are not thousands of people marching on the streets asking for more Tylenol. Plus, people can do that if they want. And when the burden is so soft, there really aren't many arguments for you to talk about. And the burden on the other side becomes really, really hard. Why would you stop people from taking 3 Tylenols instead of 2? Okay, so that becomes a little bit unfair, and the debate doesn't really go anywhere when the burden is so low. The opposite of that is a burden that's very high, right? An example is, if I was to legalize drugs, I'm going to legalize cocaine for everyone, including babies, children. Anybody can take cocaine. We should give them ecstasy. It's called ecstasy because it makes you happy, right? So put it in a lunchbox. Children should take one before class. It makes them focused. That's nuts, right? So that's too hard. That's never going to happen. You're going to lose that debate, right? The opposition team probably will like it unless they become very, very shocked, or unless they also agree ecstasy is awesome. So those are also definitions which are extreme and which can create problems. So just like the ones that are too wide or too narrow, you shouldn't have a burden that is too low, that is too soft, or too high, that is impossible to prove. The last thing is definitions that are not related to the topic. This happens when people try to interpret words symbolically or focus on areas that are not really connected to the debate, right? They try to avoid the debate. So in the debate about legalizing drugs, if I were to say, look, drugs is a form of addiction, countries are addicted, or America may be addicted to invading other countries because they've done so much in the last few years, so we're going to legalize intervention for regime change, right? And we think the world needs to support that. So this is a debate about international intervention in countries that need intervention and regime change. Now that's a squirrel, right? That's the debate speak term for it. If you stretch the debate into an area where that debate is clearly not meant to happen, then you are squirreling the debate, right? It's wholly unreasonable and it's not fair. Okay? Good. So as teams, these are things you want to avoid, right? A good test is just go through this list and ask yourself, am I doing any one of these things? Ask yourself, if I was the opposition team, would I consider this fair? Do I think this leads to a good debate? And ask yourself, if I was the judge, would I consider this as unfair, right? As a judge, these are good things to use to sort of identify some symptoms of a problem with debates and where the debate is going to. Now, it's important that just because one of these things happen in a debate, that doesn't determine the result of the debate, right? So if a debate is messy, it doesn't mean that the government team loses. If the debate is too narrow, it doesn't mean the government team loses. If the debate is too hard or soft, it doesn't mean the opposition team loses. There is no automatics, okay? These are elements of a debate. Debate changes. You need to evaluate these things in the big picture. These signs help you analyze different things, and then you evaluate, how did this impact the debate? This happened, how did they react to it? How did that change, right?